days, tech feels like oxygen. Other days, it's like a slow leak, draining our focus, our sleep, and our joy as well. Now, today, we are pressing pause to ask a better question, listeners. How do we use technology to improve our lives instead of quietly exhausting them? Welcome back, listeners, to this episode of BizBlend. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and my guest, Rob Broadhead, a seasoned developer, strategist, and educator, has spent 3 decades building software that actually serves people. From RB Consulting to Developreneur, he's helped teams skip shiny object traps and build what actually matters. So, if this thought has ever come to your mind that whether your apps on your phone or tablet are working for you or you're working for them, this conversation is your quality filter. So, let's make tech human, not just high tech. So, Rob, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really looking forward to this discussion. Much needed right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I agree. This is definitely, it seems like every day it's a little more tech in your life and there's a little more noise that we have to sort through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rob, it's kind of a what I also personally think, the more tools I know, the more applications, the more tech stuff I know, the more I'm going to be the best or the better. And when we get this into a founder's perspective, and when you audit a founder's stack, what signals tell you that a tool is giving leverage, not just adding noise? Like, what are the factors or kind of criteria or framework that you follow?
Well, the best way to look at stuff is it goes to a phrase I heard years ago and have used quite a bit. Actually, I think it's Timothy Ferris originally talked about it in 4 Hour Workweek, is the idea of being busy versus being productive. And I think a lot of our apps, a lot of our tools, a lot of our applications are more about being busy, where they will show us, they gamify things. So it's things like, hey, every time you get this thing done, you get a check, or you get a smiley face, or you get a like, or you get something that triggers the endorphins to basically say like, let's keep going. But it doesn't necessarily get work done. If you look at the sort of the sanity check is look at what you have to actually get done this week, not what your schedule necessarily said you're going to do, but what are the things you need to get done as a business owner, as a leader? It's typically going to be things like there's going to be certain people you're going to have to meet with. There's
Mm.
certain sales maybe that you're going to have to do. There may be some working in your business, certain customer touch points and things like that that you need to do. Those are things that you have to do. And there's other things that we do that tend to be they just keep us busy a little bit sometimes. It'll be things like filling out a status report that doesn't really maybe doesn't go to anybody, pulling certain reports and even scanning through data on reports that really doesn't help us. Like if you're looking at a sales report and it's the data you're looking at are things like, I'd say it's which salesman, you know, completed the sale, but you really don't care about that. You're not worried about assessing your salespeople. You're worried about are we selling more than we did, last month or last year. Then some of that data, those data points could be valued and could be valuable in certain situations, but it's figuring out how to like shrink that stuff down to what do you really need. And apps are a great example on a phone. As I don't know how many people will sit there and they've got dozens or maybe even hundreds of apps on your phone and look at it. How often do you actually use them? If you don't use them, then it's fluff. It's extra stuff that you probably don't need.
Mm. I think the best thing is that you not only gave uh, like an idea from a founder perspective, but as a everyone can use this kind of sanity check. And it's less about the feature lists and more about only purpose built tools to kind of reduce or optimize, if I can say, the cognitive load and still go faster. Now, I'll come to you know guardrails here and willpower. Like many leaders, Rob, they try to focus harder. So what are your top guardrails that protect focus without any heroics? Like automations or limits, or like what are the guardrails here? Yeah.
A lot of times it is, and technology is great for that. There are a lot of guardrails that I use now. I'll use focus apps and, busy, signals and things like essentially, it's turning off technology. So it's things like right now when I step into an interview that I will, turn off notifications so I don't have things that are distracting me from whatever my task is. There are a lot of apps out there that are useful in and of themselves where they're meditation apps and focus apps and things of that nature where it's maybe some background noise or some music or sound that helps focus you, but also helps get rid of the external distractions. And actually, your calendar yourself is something that could very often be something you can use to sort of set those guardrails. Is to put something on your calendar that is something like, take an hour, put it on your calendar that it's going to be your business development, where you're going to go and think about your products and your business and where you need to go, or maybe like networking. Maybe you have to go catch up on some network emails and touch bases with people. Put that on your calendar so you can. And these are things that honestly, a lot of it, the technology is not really the linchpin of it. You could do it with pencil and paper. You could do it, and people have done it for thousands of years before there were computers. Computers just help us usually organize that better. And a lot of times, the easiest, I guess, guardrail to look at or to use is a simple test of like, is this something that I have multiple applications or ways to do this, or is this the one that I'm using? For example, and just as a quick example, would be like calendars. You may have 5 different calendar programs and tools that you use, but then there's a cost in switching between all of those and making sure that they get synced up and things like that. So sometimes the easiest thing to do is just to simplify down to one. And maybe it's not the best choice, but just making a choice often is going to get you a lot further than spending a lot of time trying to figure out what the, in quotes, best choice is.
I think that's sustainable. That is sustainable. Let's say, Rob, if someone implements only one guardrail this week after this conversation, which gives the biggest win in 30 minutes or less?
I think your best guardrail to start with is, essentially it'd be essentially a sanity check each day. A lot of people use it as, they'll start off with create a list, a to-do list each day, or maybe the day before, at the end of the day, they'll create a to-do list for the next day. I think if you keep those, do something like that, create a list that's essentially your why for the day. And you got to keep it small, probably a lot of times no more than maybe 3 items, and say, if there's only 3 things that I'm going to get done, these are the 3 that I'm going to get done tomorrow. And then those help you with your guide rails because what you can do is when you're looking at other activities that are going on, other things that you're doing, you can actually, look back at those, that 1 to 3 items and say, is this activity getting me closer to completing the things that I need to get done? And it really is like if you can figure out your why on a big scale, that's awesome. It's like, why am I working? Why am I building that company? Why am I moving forward? Why do I have this career? That works great. But then you can also actually take that all the way down to to the lowest granular level of, okay, what is it I'm supposed to be doing today? Why am I working? Why am I doing the task that I'm doing right now? Is it actually applicable for the why that I have? So if I need to write a blog today, but I'm over doing something else, I'm checking out news. Is that news actually helping me towards my blog? It may be, maybe I'm gathering content, but maybe I'm not. So maybe I don't need to be doing that right now.
Hmm. I think that's a good example, and I think that's a very mindful way of looking at it. It's like a filter that you're putting, and also, Rob, another part, and this is very, very uh, founder related. That right now we have I mean, till some time we were completely surrounded by SaaS. Now people are talking about AI, even SaaS with AI, anything with AI. Um, so, um, I mean, I'm just like, every day I'm bombarded with 20, 25 new tools and tricks and tips and all that. And that's it. You are the smartest person in the entire room, the most dangerous one. But um, how exactly do we, make a sense of it without feeling that overwhelm, that anxiety, especially as a founder, because um, automation, sometimes it really becomes a big lifeline for founders, really saves a lot of time. But then, how exactly does a founder filter out there that this is right now required for me, this is not? Because it also kind of requires a lot of financial, investment into that.
Yeah, and I think, and this is actually what I do very often when I'm talking with customers, is sort of go through this exercise or this process, and we
Mhm.
start with what are your big pain points? What are the things that are sucking up a lot of your time? What are the things that, maybe if you could automate one thing, if we want to talk about automation, if there's one thing you could automate for your business today, what would it be? And then typically the follow-up is gonna be, "Okay, why have you not done it?" And it could be because we just really don't know. The answer could be, "Well, we don't really know how to automate this. Maybe we haven't defined this process enough." Or maybe it is, we just don't think we have the money to be able to afford automating this. Or maybe we don't think we have the time to go through the work and do all the work that's required to actually refine this and automate it. And those are all valid, but then what you can do from there is sort of step back and say, well, okay, if you can't get the complete solution, if you can't completely remove that obstacle or that task that is causing a lot of problems or sucking up a lot of time, is there a partial approach that we could do? Was it something where maybe, let's say there's a task you do that takes an hour a day and it really is sucking up your time and you'd love to get rid of that. Okay, well, maybe you're not going to get it down to 10 seconds, but what if we could knock 30 minutes off of that? That's actually pretty substantial. If it's, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, even you're 2.5 hours in. So that may be the case. Now, if we, instead of shooting for the stars, we shoot a little lower, shoot for the moon. Now, does that maybe bring it in? So that would be something that would be cost effective in time or money. And then you can play around with that a little bit. A lot of times it's playing around with parameters. It's about, instead of saying we have to be all or nothing, let's see if we can find a way to either do a partial solution that will help us in the long run, or maybe even a way to chip away at it. Sometimes it's something that, yeah, you can't really afford it right now, but what if you budgeted a very small amount each day over time or each month over time? Could you, move the ball forward and get closer to actually solving that problem? So while you may not solve it tomorrow, maybe it's still worthwhile to solve it a year from now if you've done it in a budgeted way. And so it really is playing around with the parameters, playing around with the constraints, and find something that works for you. And a lot of times having those kinds of conversations with somebody else is really what the trigger is, because I think too often we allow perfect be the enemy of good, where we, like, well, this is what we've got to do. And it's not until we start really talking through somebody else how to do that, that we rationalize what our position is and what are the incremental steps we could take to actually achieve that solution and maybe even start getting benefits immediately.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Right. And I think we've already brought AI into this. So, um, Gen AI can save us, no doubt, and also it can sometimes spawn a mess. Um, so, is there any simple workflow, Rob, that lets team capture AI gains and keep quality IP safe with the human element intact in there?
I don't know if we're really not to a point of a tried and true, perfect solution to this, but this comes back to, I've now used this a couple times. I had a conversation now, days ago, weeks ago, with somebody, and we were talking about AI, and they brought up that the idea of AI being like talking to an entry level or maybe a mid level employee as a manager, as a leader, and so when you talk to AI, you have to be very specific. You have to realize that you have to put some guardrails on it. You have to give it constraints. And the more I have worked with AI in a wide range of areas, from uh, coding and development to graphical design to grammatical content design, simple things like helping me spell better or adjust my wording a little bit better to more complicated things like designing complex systems. I found that the best way to sort of hit the areas that you mentioned, keeping your quality up, making sure there's still that human factor, making sure that there's the review, a human review factor of what AI is generating, is do it in small chunks. Is take whatever your task is and find a way to break it down to very small chunks. Just like you would, a lot of people in grade school were taught that when you want to, if you're going to write a paper or even a book, you start with an outline. And then from that outline, you do an outline for each of the sections within the outlines. And when you're eventually, if you make your outline small enough, eventually you've essentially written the entire paper or book because you have all of these bullet points basically, which are the sub sections of the outline. If you do that with your tasks, you end up with the same thing. You give AI something that is um, very easy for it to get 100% right or close enough to it. And then as a human, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, yes, that step is correct. Or, here, I'll tweak these couple of things. Now I have a correct step. And then you can either move on to the next step, or sometimes you'll use that. A lot of times I will end up using that corrected step and say, I'll feed it back to AI and say, okay, well, this is how this step worked. Now we're going to work on this next step. And then this is what happens here. Here's the constraints. Here's the things I want you to work with. And it becomes an iterative process, but it's one that it can help you quite a bit. It can help you as a human being think outside of the box a little bit because AI will throw weird stuff at you, and then also you can still get the benefit gains of what will happen is you'll end up, I think as we do this more, we'll figure out where are what are the tasks that AI does pretty good out of the box, and we know how to tell it to do those the right way versus the ones where like, you know what, this is just too complex and we're going to be better off doing it ourselves. So things that would take us longer then, but now AI can just do it quickly. Things like, throw a bunch of words and say, give me back a comma separated list or something like that. It can do that stuff really quick. And versus, some of the things that are going to be more require the human, artsy kind of touch or something like that. That is something where really that human touch that AI just is, I don't think is ever going to get.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that really helps. Really helps. Um, and I think it really really you know gives you back that hope that like it's kind of a fear mongering done on AI. But and
Mhm.
every day we keep on listening that AI will take jobs, AI won't take jobs, will won't. But I think it's not about they will or they not, but how exactly we use them so that we kind of become you know not irreplaceable, but we become more valuable and more efficient,
Mhm.
not only someone else but for us as well. um and I think this particular is the most important part of this conversation, Rob, that are there any daily micro habits that can keep tech from um, kind of bleeding into our sleep, relationships, and mental health, especially for founders that are, high output founders.
Yeah, and it comes back to some of the simplest things. It's things like, when you go to dinner, micro habits like this are great. Like get away from your phone, get away from your tablet and or your smartwatch or things like that. And you can go to dinner, go take a lunch, and leave your phone in the car or at home or in a drawer or wherever it is. Giving yourself some disconnect times will help immensely. Go for a walk. Take 15 minutes and do go for a walk during your lunch break or something like that, or in the morning, and get away from tech. because what it does is I think it allows, I think we get too, you get like immersed in the environment too much. And when you're surrounded by it, it's hard to think. It's hard to not be, constantly distracted. And I think when you walk away from things, it's the best way to sort of be able to assess it a little bit, is to not have it sitting there, chirping in your ear, sometimes almost literally with notifications, and instead say, okay, well, how did, do a little bit of review, spend a couple, few minutes going through your day. And it's like, where did I get lost? Where was I spending way too much on technology and doing things that really weren't helping me, but instead was just serving the, serving the technology gods, as it were.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I think small changes, small steps, but then the cascading effect can be huge. And it is
Mhm.
doable. And I think that's why definitely it works, Rob. It works.
Yep. Yeah, definitely that whole, the trip of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. It's the same thing as there are, just every little thing you do, if you can do it and then do it the next day and the next day, you'll start finding some progress.
Yeah, okay. So, Rob, if listeners they would like to connect with you and also explore your work, how exactly they can connect?
Well, thank you for that. They can reach me. Email is Rob, at rb-sns.com. The site that's easiest to get a hold of me probably is rb-sns.com. Or if you really want to go a little, explore stuff deeper, developreneur.com, which is develpreneur.com. Also, it's the Building Better Developers podcast is based on that, or
Mm,
it comes out of that. Using those are some great ways. We talk a lot about leveraging technology and also leveraging life and getting away from technology and finding ways to find that work life technology balance.
mm. I think that's really, really, I think very interesting because you are exploring both the ends in there. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Hmm.
So, Bhavan listeners, I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. So just check out, um, connect with Rob, explore Doublepreneur, explore the podcasts, and also um, try maybe one tiny swap or one new guardrail, which Rob shared with us. Notice your energy, and that exactly is your real KPI. And Rob, thank you so, so much for this really, really much needed, helpful, insightful conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your time.
So, listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode on BizBlend. And if this helped, share it with one person who's drowning in apps. Let's build with intention. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off.